Welcome, villagers, to the village hidden in the stories. I'm your guide, All Kage, the creator and author of all the what-if stories you see on this channel, with your awesome suggestions, of course. I write, edit, and produce every story you hear, so if you're wondering who made it, it's me. I hope you enjoy today's video. Be sure to leave your what-if ideas in the comments and subscribe if you're new. Today's story is part 4, of What If Naruto Was Sent to Adventure Time. I hope you like it because I spent way too long on it, and hopefully you guys share it. If you'd like to support the channel, check out my Patreon, link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's jump into this what if. Part 4, Mortals, Immortals, Past, and Future. The morning over the Candy Kingdom was deceptively bright. The sunlight glimmered across the pink spires and sugar glass windows, the air crisp with the smell of cotton candy and caramel. On the highest balcony of her castle, Princess Bubblegum sat cross-legged upon a woven mat, her crown glinting faintly as she drew in a steady breath. Focus, calm the mind, control the flow. This was what she told herself, and what she told the two boys at her sides, though they weren't exactly the most disciplined students. Finn sat rigid on his mat, his hat pulled low, brows furrowed in intense concentration. She could almost see the strain in him, though his mind was undoubtedly wandering. Jake lounged in the laziest kind of half-lotus, legs bent at impossible angles, half snoring through his attempt at meditation. At that moment, Jake spoke first, quietly whispering to Finn, though she could still hear them. "Do you know exactly what we are supposed to be meditating about?" Jake asked in a whisper. Finn opened his eyes with a smile, then replied similarly, "I don't know, maybe something about the Candy Kingdom, or OOO. Maybe it's like a test or something, some secret junk," Jake suggested. "Couldn't be," Finn replied. They whisper-screamed like that, back and forth for a few seconds, ever so easily breaking Bubblegum's concentration that she worked so hard for. Don't get her wrong, the guys were great, but they didn't know how to sit still. And by proxy, all her wandering thoughts that she hoped to quiet with meditation came back. A few days had passed since Naruto had helped her put a stop to a certain Starchy-led rebellion. She had begun to see him as a friend, one of her only close friends, and she found the diplomatic mask that she used to wear fading around him more often than not. Honestly, though, she still couldn't fully handle the chaotic nature of the blonde, nor could she fully understand it. But she didn't think that mattered at this point. "Oh, maybe, we have to find the sword of our minds," Finn gave another idea, steadily growing louder. Just like Jake. That was enough to make PB react. With both hands, she turned the boys' heads forward to focus. "Clear your minds," she instructed softly, her voice firm but patient. And with that last word, they quieted, closing their eyes again, while PB allowed her thoughts to fade. Once quiet, each of them began to envision something for themselves. Whether they were dreams of the future or premonitions, it was unclear for Finn and Jake. Finn saw himself atop a mountain, a much older, more skilled, more muscular version of himself, a mechanical right arm, with blonde hair longer than he already had. Jake saw Lady Rainicorn riding a pony through the fields, which was a bit weird, given how long her body was and how small the pony was. But Bubblegum's vision was more vivid, more real than anything the two boys were imagining in silence. Almost as soon as her mind was clear, whispers filled her ears and mind, mocking chatter that was quiet, yet seemed too loud. It quickly grew, festered, almost made her falter, before the visage of a dark figure arose in her mind, flames the color of emerald circling it. Suddenly, the screams of people and wails of souls filled her head, calling out as if wanting to be protected, or wanting to run away from someone, or something. The clamor grew, the screams crackled like a siren, and the wails of souls cried louder. More and more sound. More noise. Until it was too much. Bubblegum bolted upright like a spring under pressure, sweat pouring down her face softly. Her heart pounded slightly from the vision. She knew what she had seen, the unmistakable energy signature of something far older, far darker than anything she had contained before. Her instincts screamed that she had to check it out, but another, quieter part of her hesitated. What if it's worse than I imagine? What if this is beyond even my careful planning? Shaking off the doubt, she straightened her back and squared her shoulders. No, I can't ignore this, I must see it for myself. Guys, she said softly, still taking a few deep breaths to calm the lingering adrenaline. I need to check on something, I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I have to make sure nothing dangerous is escaping. Finn's eyes widened immediately. Can we come with you? He asked, hope clear in his voice. Bubblegum paused, weighing her options. Letting them come meant giving them a glimpse into something that even most citizens of OOO shouldn't see. The risk was high, the danger, higher, yet something about Finn's wide-eyed determination, the way he always threw himself into situations head first, gave her a quiet reassurance. This is a royal secret, she began carefully, her tone measured. What we're about to see, it's more dangerous than almost anything in or out of OOO. If you want to come, you have to promise me that you'll follow my lead, can you do that? Finn nodded without hesitation. Yeah, totally, we can handle it. Bubblegum allowed herself a small, soft smile, the kind she rarely showed when dealing with anyone outside her inner circle, but she pushed them away quickly. Now wasn't the time to dwell on him. All right then, she said, standing and moving toward the small cabinet where the protective jewelry was stored. You'll need these, move up your hat please Finn. Finn did as he was told, and Bonnie placed the headpieces with a blue gem, carefully on his head, before he pulled his hat back on. She placed an identical headpiece on Jake. Then turned towards the both of them. They're designed to shield your minds from any influence or attack, pay attention, this is important. She carefully fastened the gems onto Finn and Jake, watching as protective spheres shimmered into existence, faintly distorting the sunlight that spilled across the balcony. Finally, she touched her own crown, rubbing the gem gently, and a sphere formed around her as well. All of the bubbles then faded out of existence, though they were still there, keeping the three protected. Stay close to me, PB instructed. We move as a single unit, no wandering, understood? Finn and Jake both nodded eagerly. With a deep breath, Bubblegum clapped her hands 9 times in the specific rhythm she had learned for this ritual, 1 and A. 2 and 3 and 4 and Peppermint Butler appeared, his small frame filled with focus as he blew a huge, translucent bubble that enveloped the three of them. The bubble floated high, gliding through the castle air, the sunlight streaming around its translucent edges. Below, the Candy Kingdom shrank into a patchwork of pink rooftops and winding streets, oblivious to the danger looming above. Bubblegum kept her gaze forward, focusing on the pulse of the chamber at the heart of the tree, the ancient amber prison that held a malevolent presence for centuries. At the heart of this tree lies an ancient evil, she spoke, her mind echoing the warning she had received during her meditation. The Lich. At that, the bubble landed inside a secret chamber of the Candy Kingdom castle, popping almost instantly, settling the group in the highest part of the castle. A room of roots and dripping maple tree resin that lined the walls for defense. And in front of the three, taking up most of the space in the room, was the being of pure evil. Encased within the thick, honey-colored resin was a figure that seemed less like a body and more like a wound carved into the world. His form was skeletal, massive size, all jagged edges and hollowed eyes, a twisted crown of bone clinging to his skull as if it had grown from him. Even frozen, his presence was suffocating, like a void pressing against the glassy amber. Leaking faint wisps of green fire that curled and writhed as if alive. His mouth, half open, gave the impression that he was never truly still, only waiting. A faint, eerie chanting began to drift through the air, subtle at first, almost melodic in its cadence. Bubblegum's pulse quickened. "What's that sound?" Finn whispered from beside her, his voice sharp but cool, in a mixture of concern and awe. She clenched the gem on her crown, feeling the protective shield ripple softly around their heads. "It's him," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the chanting. "He is casting multiple spells, trying to take over your mind and jack your bod." She tried keeping her tone calm despite the rising tension. But some worry still crept through. If we lost the gems, we'd be defenseless, he could take control of us completely. That's freaking nuts, so who is this guy anyway? Finn exclaimed, turning directly towards the princess. Both he and Jake turned their backs on the Lich. Bonnie sighed to herself, guessing it was only right if she explained. Beyond Iceberg Lake, she started, lay the ruins of the Lich's tower. It was there that he had tried to convert the planet's life force into dark, unholy energy to destroy all of OOO. But before he could succeed, the legendary Billy had intervened, striking him with incredible force and trapping him within the sticky, translucent resin of this tree. Bubblegum's pulse raced. The Lich lay there, fully manifest now, its presence palpable and oppressive. She could feel the raw, ancient power radiating from it, the way it seemed to taunt her very mind. So this is the consequence of the amber prison weakening. Finn's eyes darted around, and he shouted an idea with the sort of fearless improvisation only he could manage. Dude, be a big sword. Bubblegum caught a flicker of worry in Jake's eyes, but he nodded and shifted, his body stretching and reshaping into the form of a massive, makeshift blade. Finn leapt, gripping Jake, using him as both shield and weapon to strike at the Lich. Finn listened intently, his eyes wide. Jake's form shifted slightly as he tried to absorb every word. Bubblegum's mind raced. She had to keep them focused, keep them aware, and yet calm. Stay composed, they're relying on me, and I can't afford distraction now. From the corner of Finn's pack, the snail began to stir. Bubblegum didn't notice, her attention remained on guiding the boys. By the time the snail reached the amber, tapping lightly against its surface, she was still talking, unaware of the tiny creature's movements. Finn yelped in surprise as the crack appeared and dark energy seeped out. Bubblegum's head snapped up, her eyes widening as the Lich's essence emerged, swirling like a storm of shadow and malice. What the nuts, she cried. The boys reacted instantly. But Bubblegum forced herself to stay sharp, her thoughts racing faster than her pulse. The Lich had broken free of the amber, something she had always known was possible, yet hoped would never come to pass. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. Every move from here on had to count. Before she could issue an order, Finn was already shouting. Jake, become a big sword. The skeletal figure rose from the fractured resin with an eerie calm, stretching to his full, towering height. His hollow sockets flickered with sickly green fire as if mocking their efforts. Jake stretched into a massive blade, and Finn swung with all the force of his young body. The strike landed true, yet did nothing. The Lich didn't even resist, he simply phased through the blow, dissolving into black-green mist. Bubblegum's breath caught as the abomination slid through the wooden chamber walls. Wherever the entity passed, the surface warped and decayed, green embers crackling like the last sparks of a dying flame. In his wake, the trail of death pulsed outward, proof that he was no longer bound, free to spread his ruin across OO. Naruto jolted upright, eyes snapping open as the last remnants of sleep were violently shaken from him. His red, rod-like irises cut through the dim light of Marceline's cave home, and a tingle ran from the nape of his neck down his back, a familiar, unnerving sensation that made his muscles tighten and his senses sharpen. What was that? He blinked rapidly, scanning his surroundings. The cave was quiet, still half-dark, the morning sun spilling faint gold across the walls. For a heartbeat, he allowed himself to dismiss it, a simple ripple of energy, nothing more. But then his mind caught it, that surge, that sharp, crawling energy crawling through OOO. It felt identical to the one he had sensed near his awakening weeks ago, back when he'd first felt the stirrings of his power return. His lips curved into a grin, animalistic, feral. Now that was interesting. Before he could move, a ripple of chakra unfurled from him, forming a shifting, shadowed figure hovering just in front of him, still tethered to his essence. Why can't you ever be serious? The figure muttered, voice like cold smoke. Buzzkill, Naruto muttered under his breath, his grin not faltering. Then, aloud, wait, did you just talk, like actually talk? The shadow didn't answer, but its presence throbbed with intensity, pressing him. What do you want today? Naruto asked, tilting his head. You're about to go after it, aren't you? The shadow asked, tone sharp. Naruto shrugged, stepping forward. Yeah. That energy signature, it's got my attention, already sounds fun. I'm gonna check it out. The shadow sighed, a long exhale of frustration. You idiot. Naruto's grin widened, excuse me, and here I thought you'd be glad I'm actually doing something responsible for once. Investigating this energy that somehow woke me up, that's responsible, right? I mean, you sensed it, right? First off, the shadow said, tone hardening, I am your chakra given form, your consciousness made manifest. Anything you sense or feel, I feel before you do. And second, its eyes seemed to pierce him. You need to be cautious, that energy isn't random. The void has opened again, another being of evil is taking form, and it's heading straight for you. Naruto paused, feeling the weight in its words. A shadow of the same creeping unease he'd felt weeks ago stirred again. Why did you use that creepy line again? You mean that unfinished work you talked about back in part 2? That looming danger I ignored, he asked slowly, a flicker of seriousness creeping through his grin. Part what? Don't worry about it. Shadow blinked, but confirmed Naruto's suspicions anyway. Back when you were testing with the Bubblegum Princess, it was only a hint. Now it's real, the energy you feel, it's potent, yes, but it's only the beginning. Naruto's grin returned, sharper now, edged with excitement. Fine, Shadow, let's see what this wannabe storm brings, it still sounds like fun. Shadow shifted, the blob of chakra shaping itself in such a way, like it was narrowing its non-existent eyes. Don't underestimate it. You may enjoy the fight, but do not be careless. That energy, it's more than you realize. Careful's boring, Naruto muttered, already shifting into motion, feeling the familiar surge of power coil in his chest. But beneath the thrill, a quiet acknowledgement, this wasn't just another random encounter, something bigger was stirring. Naruto bolted from the cave, feet barely touching the ground as the familiar rush of adrenaline and chakra surged through him. Shadow receded silently into his essence, tethered but still watchful, letting Naruto move while he concentrated. Now fully attuned, Naruto's senses stretched outward, locking onto the energy that had jolted him awake. Its potency was undeniable, a sharp, gnawing cold that bit at his senses. Almost like the air itself had become ice. What caught his attention most was the pool of energy he sensed, moving at impossible speeds, constantly flowing, yet somehow running near empty. Whoever carried that kind of power, Shadow hadn't been exaggerating. The warning made more sense now. Even for him, Naruto knew better than to underestimate it. The sensation alone made him tighten his control, his muscles coiling, chakra flaring along his spine. Even if Shadow was a perpetual buzzkill, the danger here wasn't something he could ignore. The cold, the speed, the sheer intensity of that energy, it demanded respect. And for the first time in a while, Naruto allowed himself to treat this with the seriousness it deserved. He ran through the grasslands, the wind whipping against his face, the tall blades of grass bending and snapping under his feet. Every step amplified the sense of urgency, every heartbeat echoed the connection he felt with that raw, malignant energy. Soon, the signs became unmistakable. A path of destruction wound through the fields, the remnants of death and decay left in the Lich's wake. Grass scorched and blackened, small creatures frozen mid-motion, whispers of the void lingering in the air like smoke. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he absorbed it all. This wasn't just a chase anymore, it was a reckoning. The evidence confirmed what his instincts had already suggested, this energy. This being, had left a trail of devastation that could not be ignored. Even his chaotic, thrill-seeking self knew that speed, power, and destruction combined meant he had to stay sharp. Naruto adjusted his stance mid-run, chakra coiling more tightly around his limbs, his senses stretching even further, calculating distances, speeds, and potential angles. He could feel the energy pulsing, the movement of the Lich ahead, and a grin cracked across his face. This was the kind of challenge that demanded every ounce of skill he had, and he relished it. The path of death ahead was clear now, a guide to where the Lich had gone, each mark, each residue of power a breadcrumb leading him closer. And Naruto's decision solidified. He wouldn't just chase it recklessly, he would pursue with intent, precision, and, yes, a little fun. After all, even when careful, he always enjoyed a good fight. The grasslands shifted around him, the usual rolling green fading into something wrong. The grass grew pale, almost colorless, and the further he ran, the more lifeless the land became. No trees, no wildlife, nothing but silence and a scar carved into the earth, a bare path, stripped clean of life. The trail led forward in a straight, merciless line, and Naruto didn't need shadow whispering in his head to know it was guiding him directly to the source of that energy. He grinned and leaned into the run. His body cutting through the open field in smooth, effortless strides. But despite the confidence in his movements, his gut was tight. Whoever was leaving this path wasn't just moving, they were planning something. Naruto pushed faster, his intent was simple: catch up, find the energy, and deal with it. But just as the signature began to sharpen in his senses, he caught sight of two shapes ahead on the same path. He closed the gap in a heartbeat, flickering forward until he was running right alongside them. Finn and Jake. Both were wearing strange headgear Naruto didn't recognize, but that wasn't what caught his attention. No, what stood out was Finn himself, swallowed in a massive pink sweater. His right arm weighed down by a battered gauntlet of old gold and iron, with a glowing eye on the back of the hand piece. The thing was thick, heavy-plated, and etched with worn lines of runes that still faintly pulsed with power. It looked like a relic meant for one purpose: destruction. Naruto raised a brow. That's new. He ran in time, looking ahead where Finn and Jake were. It was a literal corpse in a cloak, that was what the energy came from. Weird, Naruto thought. Finn noticed first his fellow blonde first, nearly jumping mid-stride. Naruto, where'd you even come from? Jake craned his neck with a stretch, still running hard. Yeah man, you just popped in. What's your deal? None of them slowed down, that told Naruto more than words could, they were chasing the same thing he was. He kept his grin, matching their pace easily. I could ask you both the same thing. First I sent some weird energy, and now I find you two chasing it, so you're after this guy too? Finn's face hardened at the name. Yeah, he's the Lich, real bad dude. Beyond Iceberg Lake, that's his domain, his well of power is there, if he reaches it, he'll grow strong enough to wipe out all life in Oo. Naruto's tone stayed light, but his eyes narrowed ahead. Sounds grim, must be compensating for something. His grin twitched wider. And what's with the sweater? The gauntlet, and the funky headgear? Finn didn't break stride. The headgear, PB made them, the Lich can control minds, so these keep him out, and this gauntlet, he lifted the heavy thing briefly, the runes glinting as he did, this is what's gonna slay him. Jake chimed in with a smirk, and the big pink sweater, that's straight from PB too, personal gift, if you get it, Naruto. Naruto barked out a laugh. Really? You must be getting her favor, he joked, guess she wants her hero looking stylish while saving the world. Finn's ears reddened, but he ignored the jab, staring forward. So why are you here, Naruto? Jake added, yeah man, no offense, but saving the world junk doesn't really sound like your brand of fun. You usually only show up if something's interesting. Naruto didn't look at them, eyes fixed on the pale horizon, but his grin spread again. Oh, this is interesting. I felt that same energy near me when I woke up here a month ago. And when I woke up, suddenly sensing the same energy, it made me really interested, so now I'm gonna find out why exactly it was around me. The grin sharpened, turning feral, and once I figure out why the Lich woke me up, he bared his teeth, I'm gonna murk him. Neither Finn nor Jake questioned it further. They just exchanged a glance, then nodded. If Naruto was in, then so be it. The three ran together in silence, the land around them barer with every stride. But Naruto's thoughts churned beneath the grin plastered on his face. The Lich, a well of power, taking more energy. His energy was edging up near Naruto's own, but still, he wanted more. That, Naruto thought, was the concerning part. The blonde's thoughts cut short as Finn suddenly slammed into something up ahead. The kid tumbled, arms and legs flailing, before rolling across the pale grass tangled up with a blue-cloaked man. Naruto skidded to a stop, Jake stretching beside him to avoid colliding into the mess. He cocked his head. Sure enough, it was the same old guy they usually dealt with, Ice King, fumbling around, muttering about being clumsy while Finn shoved him off with a loud, "What the heck, man?" The kid didn't waste time either, he just pushed the old wizard out of the way and kept running down the dead path. Naruto and Jake followed without hesitation. Naruto let out a chuckle, calling over his shoulder, "Sorry Flake Beard, we got more important things to deal with right now." Ice King wasn't deterred, he flapped after them, his voice wobbling with some desperate plea. "Come on, just hear me out, I'm serious about Bubblegum, if you guys give me your blessing, I'm sure she'll marry me." Naruto blinked and tilted his head toward Finn and Jake. "What's this old fart yammering about?" Jake groaned. Today he got it in his head that if me and Finn gave him our blessing, PB would just, bam, fall head over heels for him. Finn gritted his teeth, he's totally bonkers. Naruto almost burst out laughing, the mental image of Bubblegum's reaction, her disgust, her scowl, her total science queen shutdown energy, it almost doubled him over. He covered his mouth instead, a strangled snicker slipping out. But Ice King wasn't done. He zipped ahead, cutting them off again, flaring his cloak wide. "I even wrote her name all over my arms and legs. Look!" He flung the cloak aside, revealing abnormally skinny limbs covered in scrawled pink letters. "Rank man," Finn shouted, shoving him aside again. "You're sick." Ice King fluttered backward but stayed close. Whining. Naruto eyed him, and the image clicked in his head, before he spoke out with a chuckle under his breath. "You know, you're like a mutt that buzzes." For once, Ice King didn't snap at the insult. Maybe annoyed, sure, but he waved it off. "I'm not talking to you, any time I DK you just insult me, I'm talking to Finn and Jake." Naruto grinned, rude. "Guys, it's not fair," Ice King whined louder. "She always hangs out with you too, and it's not like you want to marry her." That pushed Finn's patience over. He snatched a slab of rock from the ground with both hands, swung, and hurled it at Ice King. The thing zipped through the air at brutal speed. "Why are you following us?" Ice King yelped, flapping out of the way as the rock shattered behind him. "I already told you." They were about to run again, but the wizard beat them to it. He flung his hands wide, and cold slammed in around them. A hollowed-out wall of ice grew, caging them tight in a jagged dome. Ice King floated down inside, wagging his finger. "Just give me a chance, I'll even do a little dance for you." And then, he did. He shuffled, swung his arms offbeat, flailed his legs with no rhythm at all, not even close to a dance. At first, Naruto nearly keeled over with laughter, until it hit him how sad it actually looked. The grin on his face went flat, deadpan. "Man, this is just depressing." He flashed through a series of seals, stomped the ground, and black flames erupted. They ate at the ice greedily, the cage collapsing into wet steam in seconds. Naruto snorted, brushing his hands together. "Nice try, but we don't got time to babysit you right now." He dashed out of the ruins of the ice dome, Finn and Jake following hot on his heels. The path forward still stank of death and cold, pulling them closer to the Lich. Behind them, Ice King froze in place, his face falling. "I tried to do this the right way," his voice cracked, low and trembling. Then his eyes narrowed, sharp with petulance. "But now you've forced me to do bad doings." Naruto didn't bother looking back. The grin was back on his face, but his focus had sharpened. First the stray puppy with an ice crown, now the real mutt waiting ahead. The Lich was close. Naruto glanced sidelong at Finn and Jake as their feet pounded the dead path. The trail of rot stretched on ahead, heavier, sharper, like it was pulling them towards something inevitable. He clicked his tongue, then smirked. He barely could wait to fight this guy, that and the fact he felt that stopping before he got to that well thing was really the only option. And he could speed this up a bit, instead of trying to keep pace with Finn and Jake. "You guys think maybe we should be a bit, I don't know, faster?" Jake groaned before Finn could even answer. Aw man, don't start with that. Every time you grab us and speed boost ahead, my stomach feels like it's doing cartwheels. Not cool. Naruto chuckled, come on Stretchy, you'll live. Besides, we're not exactly chasing down a candy thief here, this thing's leaving a graveyard wherever it goes. Finn's eyes stayed locked forward, grip tightening on the gauntlet. He's right Jake, but if you can't handle it, how about instead Naruto holds him off, even just stall him, so that we can catch up and all finish it, that is, if he doesn't finish it himself first. The confidence in Finn's tone made Naruto bark out a laugh. Ha, you know me too well, kid. His grin lingered, sharp and wolfish. But his thoughts slipped darker. Hold him off, yeah, I can do that, beat him down, probably. But kill him? His jaw tightened faintly, that's iffy, and I don't like that, not when this guy's power's still climbing. He shook the thought off, letting his smile stretch wider as he leaned into his stride. Alright then, you two keep trucking, I'll play with the Lich until you show up, sound good? Finn nodded once, firm, we'll be right behind you. Jake muttered, man, this is still gonna make me hurl. Naruto flashed them both a feral grin, that's the spirit. And with a sudden crack of speed, his form blurred and vanished up the path. He reappeared ahead, right in front of the energy source. Peekaboo corpsey. The word slipped out cocky, but Naruto's stomach turned. The thing floating ahead was even worse up close, skin stretched, rotted, something dead that refused to stay that way. Its green cloak draped like mold, heavy and wrong. The Lich didn't even twitch at his arrival. Didn't matter, Naruto didn't wait. He launched up, twisting mid-air, an axe kick came down like a guillotine, meant to drive the monster into the ground. His leg passed straight through. He twisted, redirecting instantly, an angled slash at its skull, air. Momentum carried him into a wheel spin, foot arcing for the ribs, nothing but ghost. Naruto landed hard, dust skidding out. Split seconds, near my top speed, and still not a damn hit. So, this wasn't just raw energy, this was something else, magic, or whatever. It made him itch, fine, two could play. He ran through seals, chest swelling, his lips parted and three white-hot projectiles roared out, sandstorm bullets, sand and wind fused into shrieking pellets of destruction. The Lich finally turned, his bony hand raised, wreathed in green flame. All three bullets shattered against it, sparks hissing into the pale air. He hovered at the edge of the lake, his voice leaking out dry and hollow. Burst. The word hit Naruto's spine like ice water. His chest clenched, and then agony detonated. He looked down. Well, shit. Half of him was gone, his stomach, his ribs, his left side, all ripped apart from the inside by imploding green fire. His arm evaporated into nothing. Pain screamed in every nerve. This wasn't normal pain, normally he could shrug it off, grit through it, let his regeneration take the wheel. But these green embers stuck, crawling along the wound, burning hotter the more he tried to heal. His chakra sputtered against it. Every flicker of his cells knitting back together only made the fire bite deeper. He collapsed, vision shaking, the Lich was already drifting away, as if Naruto had been reduced to background noise. And then, memory not his own. The world bled into darkness. He saw resin, black and suffocating, a prison binding the corpse king. Inside, a single thought burned. Power leaking outward, razor thin, forced into one purpose. The Lich stretched it, focused it, until it found something. Found him. Naruto's own body, sleeping, dormant. The Lich whispered without lips, planting a brand of himself into Naruto's core. Enough to wake him days later, enough to sit, to fester, to grow, not control, yet. But a countdown. The memory bled away, Naruto blinked back to himself, heart thundering. So that's it. That same shard of the Lich's energy had been inside him since day one. Growing with him, and the explosion, that wasn't just to maim him. It was the trigger, the activation. The reason he could even see these memories was simple. The Lich thought he'd already won. Naruto grit his teeth, forcing himself upright. His torso had only barely started to grow back, skin knitting slow and uneven. His left arm? Still gone. His cloak shredded, seal sparking faintly but refusing to reset until he was whole again. And worse, he could feel it, that energy fighting him inside. His speed slowed. His strength cut. His chakra bleeding out, half of it warped, being forced to feed the infection. This wasn't just an injury, it was a parasite, a leash. Naruto spat blood and green sparks. This is a bitch and a half. Not only did the Lich blow him up, now he wanted to control him. And that didn't make Naruto scared. Didn't make him despair. It just pissed him off. Naruto's vision sharpened, his red eyes flashing with raw anger, but he forced himself still. Every instinct screamed to chase that corpse-looking freak down, tear him apart piece by piece. But running in with half a body, barely stitched together, would be beyond stupid. He clenched his teeth, letting his fury simmer while the missing parts of him slowly knitted back. The healing was crawling along, his left arm a ghost of itself, faint outlines of muscle and bone glimmering before they hardened. He had to wait. By the time Finn and Jake finally caught up, the worst of the fire still gnawed at his insides. Jake stretched to steady him while Finn skidded to a halt, eyes wide as he took in Naruto's state. "What the heck happened?" Finn asked, nearly stumbling closer, his sword hand twitching. Naruto dragged himself upright, brushing soot off what was left of his cloak. His voice came out clipped, sharp. "Lich had an ace, slipped it past me, won't happen again." The sight of his half-regrown arm pulled Finn's eyes downward, his face tightening. The kid's grip on his gauntlet wavered, his determination faltering just a hair. Naruto noticed and snorted through the pain. "Don't get distracted," he said firmly, rolling his shoulders as his arm crackled with slow regeneration. "He got me once. Yeah, but I don't see him pulling the same stunt twice, I'll make sure of that." He tilted his chin toward Finn, his grin ghosting back. "And besides, you got that gauntlet, don't you?" That earned him a smirk from Finn, fire lighting back up in his eyes. The gauntlet shimmered faintly, almost like it was agreeing with him. It didn't take long for the three of them to spot their quarry. The Lich floated further ahead, crossing the lake with a sickening ease, the dark waters rippling beneath him. Jake stretched himself into a long, low boat with practiced ease, Finn hopping in without hesitation. Naruto's sandals slapped the water as he surged forward, his reflection warped in the ripples. Cloak still smoking in jagged burns. Not even a handful of seconds passed before Finn leaned into the gauntlet, green-gold energy exploding out from it, propelling him like a rocket. Naruto blinked, wide-eyed, as Finn shot past him. "Well, that's new," he muttered, pushing harder, until he had to leap mid-run and land on Jake's stretched form before Finn left him behind completely. They were closing in. Naruto crouched low on the boat, the wind biting at his face, and said low but certain, "Let's make this one count, no second tries, first strike is the last." He slammed his palm outward, chakra roaring into life. A Rasengan spun black in his hand, darker than ink, its edges flickering unnaturally with faint hints of green, an echo of what had been forced into his body. Neither Finn nor Jake caught it. Good. Beside him, Finn leveled the gauntlet forward, its eye flaring open, glowing hot as it built to something massive. The lake's surface hissed as the energy condensed. And then, the Ice King flew down in a jagged burst of frost right in front of them, blocking their line. Chains of frozen ice around the pink girl in his arms. Princess Bubblegum, bound tight, her lips pressed thin as she struggled in the wizard's arms. Naruto's chakra faltered, his Rasengan shriveling into sparks before fading entirely. Finn, less restrained, let out a startled yell, firing the gauntlet downward in reflex. The blast backfired, launching all of them up into the air before Jake twisted himself desperately to catch their landing. They crashed onto the far side of the lake, a heavy thud shaking Naruto's bones. He groaned, dragging himself to a sit, ribs aching against his half-healed torso. Really starting to hate this day, he growled, clutching his side. His glare snapped to Ice King. "And you you're the cherry on top." Finn's reaction wasn't far behind, his voice cracking with fury, "Let her go, Ice King." But instead of his usual nonsense, Ice King's eyes were wild, his tone jagged, bitter. "You did this, all of this, don't you get it? I wouldn't have touched her if you hadn't pushed me, if you hadn't." "What are you talking about?" Bubblegum snapped through gritted teeth, cutting him off, her breath fogging in the ice chains. She then turned to the three. "Don't waste time on him, get up, if the Lich reaches his well, it's over." Naruto froze for half a beat, the well, his stomach turned. Before they could scramble back to their feet, a sound tore across the land behind them. The shockwave rippled the lake, vibrating through Naruto's bones. He whipped his head around, eyes widening as the horizon bled green. A towering mushroom cloud spiraled upward, grotesque and luminous, its edges shaped not like smoke but writhing, screaming souls rising into the sky. The whales hit next, low at first, then swelling, an ocean of death crying out in unison. The sound rattled his teeth, scraping at the edges of his skull. And for a second, even his healing stuttered. His lips curled back, breath shallow. "Shit." The word barely left him before the full weight of what just happened pressed down. He could feel it, the Lich had fed. And for the first time since waking up in this candy-coated world, Naruto felt something he hated admitting even to himself. He wasn't sure if they'd actually make it in time. The trio ran, boots and paws pounding the cracked ground, leaving the open grasslands behind. Ahead, the ruins of a city came into view, jagged skyscrapers and broken towers half swallowed by time and neglect. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he took it in, a sharp tug of recognition in his gut. Not as old as him, he had been asleep through 20,000 years, but old enough. Enough that the collapsed streets and shattered glass reflected the echoes of cities he had once wandered. "Looks like this place has been dead for a while," Jake muttered, voice low as he weaved around toppled concrete. "Dead enough to make me nostalgic," Naruto muttered under his breath, running alongside, one hand brushing the ruined walls for balance. His cloak flared in the wind, singed edges trailing smoke. He remembered, clearly, the cities he'd walked before his long sleep. Their echoes were buried here, twisted and rotten. They found the subway entrance, the source of the green energy explosion. Smoke curled upward, sickly and green, reeking faintly of ozone and rot. The stairwell gaped like a wound, splintered and jagged. Down they went. Inside, the subway was a graveyard of destruction. Half-collapsed tunnels, walls crawling with overgrown vines, floors littered with bones, charred remnants of long-dead citizens. The putrid silence pressed on Naruto's chest. And then the dead stirred. Rattling skeletons dragged themselves from the floors, their joints creaking like old doors. The green energy thrummed in the air, pulling them into unholy cohesion. "I don't have time for this," Naruto whispered sharply, crouching, his red eyes narrowing. Finn, right beside him, shouted. Exasperated. "I really don't have time for this." He thrust his gauntlet forward, the eye flaring to life. Naruto's fingers flew through rapid hand signs, crackling red lightning arcing from his palms. Plasma release, his voice was sharp, the sound echoing off the tunnels. Bolts of raw, deadly energy struck skeletons squarely, disintegrating bone into sparks. Finn's gauntlet fired several concentrated beams of bright energy, having the wave of skeletons. Naruto's lightning streaked through the rest, each strike burning hotter than natural lightning, each one melting bone and arcane binding alike. But then, grabbed from behind. Naruto twisted mid-air, redirecting his attack into the nearest walls as Jake shifted around Finn to catch the fire and debris. Finn's backpack was ripped off in the chaos. "Leave it," he yelled, still moving. Jake melted into shape, a living sling and satchel, keeping Finn supplied as they pushed forward. A massive skeleton loomed, twice the height of a man, green embers pulsing along its ribcage. Finn aimed his blast downward, Naruto's plasma cut streaks in tandem. The combined strike shattered bone, creating a pit beneath them. Gravity pulled them into the yawning gap, the wind roaring in their ears as they fell. Naruto landed hard on the opposite edge of the pit, muscles tensing to absorb the shock. His eyes immediately locked on the Lich below, hovering over a faintly glowing green pool, hands drawing energy from it. The well's light cast eerie shadows across his corpse-like features. His green cloak flared with unnatural energy, and the air around him warped as he absorbed more from the well. Weird, Jake whispered. Naruto didn't reply, there was no time for talk now. They dropped fully into the lower tunnel, Finn flew in with Jake becoming like a glider. He raised his gauntlet, ready to strike. I will smite you, in the name of Bubblegum, Finn shouted. Naruto moved in right after, hand signs flicking faster than the eye could track, red lightning needles slashing from his fingers in a deadly spray toward the Lich. But the Lich reacted with horrifying speed, one hand shot out, grabbing Finn's gauntlet arm just as it glowed. Then a green blast erupted uncontrollably, fire raining down in a shockwave that threw both Finn and Jake away. They slammed into the walls, sliding across broken tiles, scrambling to regain their footing. Naruto's heart lurched as he was grabbed as well. Shit. Then he was thrown. He landed opposite the pool, cloak tattered, one arm fully regrown but still tender. The Lich's green flames licked his form, swirling around like living knives. He didn't speak, he didn't waste words. Just pure, instinctual motion. Naruto ducked, hand signs chaining seamlessly, gray wood rising under his palm, creating a wall to absorb the largest blast. Sparks hissed, smoke curling. Red lightning fired back at the Lich, who dodged each strike, forced to retreat incrementally. Back and forth, the battle boiled, until a gnawing tightness pressed in Naruto's chest. His chakra. He froze mid-jab, feeling it spike inside him. The Lich's implanted energy reacted again, having refueled itself with Naruto's chakra, pouring into him with each jutsu he launched. Shit. Every strike he made, every motion he took, fed it. He could feel it crawling through his veins, threading itself with his chakra, shaping him, weighing him down. His attacks slowed just slightly, a hair too late for him to adjust. Then, like a switch flipping, his body locked. Eyes once red, now a sickly green. His muscles frozen in the middle of his last thrown needle, standing like a statue, lightning fizzing faintly from his fingertips, fading slowly as the control took over. Silence fell, the Lich's aura humming in triumph, and Naruto's mind screamed from inside, I'm stuck, completely stuck. Even in this moment, part of him throbbed with chaos, claws of instinct and fury scratching at the cage the Lich had built in him. But externally, frozen, green-eyed, silent. He knew without moving, the energy had fully merged. Any further strikes now would only feed it. A low growl built in the back of his throat. Powerless but simmering. This isn't over, I'll claw my way out. But part of him, still felt stuck. Finn stared at his burned fist, the gauntlet gone, reduced to charred slag. He cursed under his breath, disbelief etched across his face. He looked towards Naruto, his body still frozen. Naruto, he shouted. No response. Keep fighting, he yelled again, voice raw with urgency. Still silence. Pain radiated through Naruto's chest, stomach, and side. Green embers of the Lich's energy had infiltrated his black chakra, suppressing it, forcing him to stay frozen. He ground his teeth, heart pounding. Force yourself out, he thought, over and over, desperation clawing at him. But nothing worked. His body refused, he was trapped. And then came the whispers, soft, insidious, curling like smoke into his ears. Suggestions. Commands, festering thoughts, the Lich. At first, Naruto's mind screamed back, fight it, resist. But the shouts faded under the steady, gnawing pressure of the Lich's influence. His body began moving on its own, he wasn't in control. Kill them. His limbs obeyed, step by step, toward Finn and Jake. Wait, no. They were still standing, the initial strike from the Lich had done more than Naruto anticipated, but they were alive. Another step. Naruto, Finn's voice quivered, questioning. Damn it, stop moving. Step. Stop it. Step. I said stop. Naruto could do nothing but scream inside his own head. Don't you fucking dare, you bastard. Step, another. I'll rip out your fucking throat. The final step, his hand closed around Finn's neck. Finn lurched in pain, trying to pry the grip away, eyes wide, forcing Naruto to stare into his dark green eyes. No more. The whispers screamed louder, but his own thoughts, his will, screamed back harder. The pain, the horror of almost killing his friends, the shame, and the fear all collided inside him. His body froze, fingers tightening for a fraction of a second longer, but then everything snapped. He saw the pain in Finn's eyes, Jake's desperation, the smug, cruel grin of the Lich. A moment he never wanted to witness. But it broke something loose inside him, a dam of fury and raw emotion. Why do you still resist, immortal? The Lich hissed through the whispers. I could use you, and you wouldn't even realize. I could cut your senses away right now and kill you afterward. No more, Naruto finally roared over the whispers of his mind. His eyes flashed red again, burning with pure, animalistic anger. Black chakra erupted from him in thick, living waves. I'm done with your shit, he snarled. You die here, you bastard. He crouched low, his body coiled like a predator. His left arm surged back into place with a burst of energy. You hear that? Fuck you. Chakra whipped around him like a storm, long blonde hair flaring, face twisting into a sharp, predatory grin. His whisker marks deepened, nails lengthened into lethal claws. The transformation completed, his eyes faded to void, no pupils, just pure, dark nothingness. Black chakra formed a cloak around him, writhing, taking shape into a single-tailed fox. The very ground cracked under the pressure of its power. Damn you, bastard, he growled, teeth bared, claws digging into the cracked earth. Finn and Jake stood frozen, awe and fear painted across their faces. But inside, Naruto grinned, ear to ear. He had nearly been forced to kill his friends. Nearly, but now he had control again. The bitter, toxic taste of being manipulated and nearly broken had turned into fuel. He was going to tear the Lich apart. Finn and Jake could only stare. The ground beneath Naruto split and cracked just from him crouching there, jagged fissures spiderwebbing outward as black chakra hissed against the stone. Dust lifted in thin plumes. The cavern trembled like the earth itself wanted to retreat from him. The air grew heavy, suffocating, charged with malice and raw power. Every breath burned like smoke in their lungs, every step closer to him was like wading through water. Jake's ears drooped low, body tightening around Finn instinctively. Dude, I think our buddy just leveled up. Finn's eyes stayed locked on Naruto, wide and unblinking. The sweater clung to his chest as though bracing him, and all he could whisper was, Naruto. But Naruto didn't hear. With a low snarl, he exploded forward, the air cracked, the stone cratered, and in a single instant he was on the Lich, claws raised. His fist smashed across the skull's jaw, sending the corpse staggering back, no phasing, no slipping through, a hit. Naruto roared, teeth bared, and the sound was half man, half beast, not so untouchable now, huh? Black chakra surged and solidified, clawed hands the size of boulders erupting from the cloak. They lashed out like predators, seizing the Lich by his rotting cloak and yanking him forward. Naruto's knee crashed into his chest, claws slashing across his ribs in a blur. The Lich reeled, bones cracking, green fire flaring violently to repel the onslaught. He thrust both hands forward, releasing a torrent of emerald flame. Naruto braced, cloak writhing, then bit into the fire with a chakra-formed fox head, devouring the inferno before spitting the embers back in the Lich's face. The corpse hissed and raised a forest of bone spears from the ground. They lunged upward, snapping together to impale. Naruto snarled, crouched, then leapt through them, shredding the spikes apart with hooked claws. He landed on the Lich's back in midair, hands slamming down, and chakra-formed limbs erupted from his cloak, pinning the corpse outstretched like prey beneath a predator's paws. Naruto hammered fists into his skull, each blow shaking the cavern, each strike louder, heavier. Break, damn, you, break, apart. The Lich wrenched free, body flickering with flame, his skeletal arms snapping forward to smash Naruto across the cavern. Naruto rolled, cracked stone underfoot, and crouched low again, grinning savagely, lips curled back, void eyes gleaming. Good, Naruto growled, voice layered with an animalistic rumble. Fight L back, makes it fun. He lunged again, cloak shaping into a massive fox claw that slammed down to crush the Lich. The corpse twisted aside, but not fast enough, its arm was torn free, spinning across the cavern before regrowing in green fire. Naruto's laugh echoed, unhinged, carried by the void, "You're not slipping away this time." The two collided in a storm, green flame against black chakra, claws against bones, predator against predator. Each strike cracked stone, shattered tunnels, sent shockwaves through the cavern. For every blow the Lich blocked, another slammed into him. For every attack he threw, Naruto ripped through it with wild strength. But then, the ground shifted. Dozens of skeletal arms erupted behind Naruto, wrapping around him, pulling him down. He ripped through one, then another, but they multiplied faster, clamping on tight, dragging him into their cage. Naruto snarled, cloak lashing violently, but his movement slowed as the Lich raised both hands. Green fire swelled, brighter than before, coiling into an inferno. Naruto's void eyes narrowed, shit. The flames descended. For a second, Naruto thought he was done, pinned, cooked alive. He grit his teeth, refusing to close his eyes, rage still boiling as he braced for the pain. But then, the fire split. It curved, bent, washed around him without burning. Naruto blinked, stunned, as smoke and heat whipped past. When the flames cleared, he saw Finn standing there, arms out, sweater stretched tight across his chest, glowing faintly, shielding him. Jake gawked, "Dude, you just tanked that, your sweater just ate it." Naruto, still snarling under his breath, stared hard at the boy. "What the hell was that, Finn?" Finn looked down at the smoking fabric, wide-eyed, breathing fast. I don't know." But the sweater pulsed, faintly alive, faintly powerful. Finn tugged on the edges of his sweater, breathing hard, still staring at the faint glow that pulsed through the fabric. His voice shook at first, but steadied as he spoke. "I think, this is it, the ultimate weapon against evil." Naruto arched a brow, the black cloak hissing faintly around him as he turned his head. "The what now?" "The power of LL liking somewhat a whole lot." Finn responded with stars in his eyes. Naruto just stared at him, deadpan, his red eyes narrowed. "Are you serious?" Jake nodded, earnest as ever. Naruto groaned, dragging a clawed hand down his face. "Okay, listen. Don't ever say that again. I really, really hate that power of love and friendship garbage. Makes my skin crawl." Jake blinked, "Even if it works?" Naruto sighed, glancing back toward the distant silhouette of the Lich as the corpse drifted slowly over the well. "Even if it works. Doesn't mean I have to like it." A pause fell over them, the ground still quaked faintly, and the air smelled of smoke and char. Naruto's chakra cloak snapped and hissed, but his mind was moving fast. "Still, if that thing can deflect his cursed energy the way my chakra can damage him, then maybe together we can finish this." Naruto tore his gaze from the Lich, grabbed Finn by the shoulders, and yanked the sweater off in one swift motion. He shoved it back into the boy's hands. Naruto, what are you?" Finn sputtered. Jake tilted his head. "Yeah, dude, what gives?" Naruto's eyes burned as he straightened. "I'm done playing this back-and-forth game. It ends now. We've got two things that can actually hurt him, my chakra and your sweater. We put them together, there's no way he walks away." Finn's lips pressed tight, he looked down at the sweater, then back at Naruto. After a heartbeat, he nodded, gripping the fabric like a sword. "All right," he said quietly. Naruto bared his teeth in a grin. "Jake, launch us." Jake blinked, then snapped to attention. "Got it." His body stretched and coiled like a giant slingshot. Naruto crouched low in the sling, Finn climbing up beside him with the sweater wrapped tight around his arms. Jake drew them back, muscles straining. Ready? Send us, Naruto growled. With a snap, Jake released them. They shot forward, Finn rising high, Naruto staying low. The Lich's empty eye sockets locked instantly on Naruto, reading his killing intent, ignoring the boy above. Come then, the corpse rasped. Naruto hit first. His cloak surged into a clawed construct that slashed low, cutting clean through the Lich's legs. Bone shattered, withered flesh tearing, and the corpse let out a sudden grunt as it lost balance. That's when Finn struck. The boy landed hard on the Lich's crown, shoving the glowing sweater into one of its empty sockets, pulling it across, threading it through the other. The Lich started to laugh, low and rattling, until Finn yanked both ends and ripped. The sweater tore across bone, the Lich's skull cracked, split, and then burst apart in a shriek that cut short, silenced mid-laugh. For a moment, all was still. Naruto landed hard on the far side of the well, cloak lashing wildly before flickering. Finn dropped beside him, panting, sweater still in his hands. The two stood in silence, staring at the empty husk collapsing toward the ground. Naruto's cloak shrank, fading, red eyes dimming back to blue. The charred rips in his orange jacket slowly mended as his natural chakra flow returned. Why you did it? Naruto's head snapped up, Princess Bubblegum's voice rang out from above. She was still bound in chains of ice, clutched tightly in Ice King's arms. Naruto clenched his jaw, of course, watching the whole damn time. His eye twitched in irritation. Ice King waved his free hand, like he'd been a part of it all along. Yup, guess we did do it, huh, teamwork, baby. Naruto glared. But the wizard went on, all smiles. You know what, princess, this whole mess has taught me something, I don't want to capture you anymore, you're free. With a dramatic snap, the ice chains shattered into glittering shards. And just as quickly, he let her go. Unfortunately, they were hovering directly above the Lich's well of power. Everyone froze as Bubblegum dropped, her scream echoing. Ice King gasped, covering his mouth. Whoops, I've got the dropsies. Silence. Finn's mouth hung open, sweater slack in his hands. Jake's jaw dropped to the floor. Even Naruto just stared for a moment, stunned. Then his fists clenched, unbelievable. Without another word, he sprinted forward and leapt headfirst into the well after her, cloak flaring back to life as he dove into the darkness. The instant Naruto dove into the well, it felt like the world had been ripped away. The air vanished. His skin burned. The dark green waters weren't water at all, but liquid malice, thick and choking, pressing down against his cloak. The deeper he went, the more it pushed, crushing him, like 1,000 claws trying to peel his chakra away. His cloak hissed and cracked, strands of black flaring against the sickly green currents. Every second inside felt longer than it should, like time had twisted, stretching, pulling him apart. His breath turned ragged. This isn't just power. It's memory. It's hunger. It wants to dig inside me. And then, without warning, it did. The dark liquid wrapped around his eyes, pulling him down. He blinked, and he was standing again, but not here, a battlefield. Blood soaked into the soil, bodies lying still all around him. The stink of ash and steel filled his nose. And in front of him, Sasuke. Naruto looked down, and his heart seized. His own hand was buried through Sasuke's chest, glowing white with a strange, unfamiliar cloak, slick with blood. Sasuke's head was bowed, hair shadowing his eyes. Naruto's throat tightened. Why'd you start all this? Why couldn't you just leave me, and the tailed beasts, alone? The silence was unbearable, all around them, the battlefield whispered with death, their friends and foes alike gone, the war's end written in corpses. But Sasuke said nothing, not a word. The weight of it crushed Naruto worse than the well ever could. His teeth ground together, his body shaking. He needed, an answer. But none came. The memory bled away in silence, dissolving into the dark. And then, her. Bubblegum. Her pink body drifting in the well's depths, the liquid fire gnawing her away like acid. Naruto's eyes widened. Shit. He lunged forward, cloak blazing to life in a desperate burst, and caught her before she sank further. Her body was limp in his arms. Warm and soft but dangerously fragile, melting at the edges like wax under flame. No, 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 don't you dare, he hissed, wrapping her close as he forced his chakra to flare outward, clawing against the pressure of the well. The black fox cloak spread wide, dragging him upward like wings, fighting against the liquid that tried to pull him deeper. With a roar, he broke the surface, air slamming into his lungs, cloak dripping with green fire. He landed hard on the stone beside the well, PB still in his arms. He glanced down, and his stomach dropped. Her skin was slick, melting, her form unstable. Shit shit shit. His teeth clenched as panic flooded his chest. What are we gonna do? He looked up at Finn and Jake, his eyes wild. Because one of his friends, one of the few he'd let himself trust in this new world, might be dying right there in his arms. Time skip, the Candy Kingdom hospital was brighter than anything Naruto was used to. White walls gleamed under spotless glass lamps, every surface polished so clean it almost hurt his eyes. The air buzzed with the squeak of shoes on wax tile, the faint crackle of intercoms, the clatter of trays and medical carts being wheeled through the wide hallways. It smelled sweet, like sugar and syrup, but beneath that, sterile. Controlled. The double doors to the hospital burst open with a slam, and Dr. Ice Cream came rushing in, pushing a stretcher at full tilt. Nurse Pound Cake was right at his side, calling out instructions that Naruto barely caught. On the stretcher was Princess Bubblegum, her dark, melted form clinging limply to the sheets. She didn't look like royalty anymore. She barely looked like a person. Finn, Jake, and Naruto walked tight alongside the stretcher, each of them unscathed but carrying their own tension. Finn's backpack was gone. Jake was unusually quiet. And Naruto, though outwardly calm, felt hollow. His smirk, the one he usually wore like a badge, was gone. Behind them trailed the worried crowd, Raggedy Princess, Hot Dog Princess, Breakfast Princess, a dozen others. Candy citizens packed the hallways. Whispering, fretting. Even Ice King hovered among them, wringing his hands, his nervous blue face pale under his crown. "What's her status, Dr. Ice Cream?" Nurse Pound Cake barked. The doctor frowned, adjusting his cone-shaped hat. 90% of her is crazy ugly, the other 10% of her is crazy nasty. Naruto stared. That didn't sound like a diagnosis. He didn't even have the will to laugh. "Will she make it, doctor?" "I don't know." Nurse Pound Cake. Naruto's gut twisted at that. They barreled through more doors until they reached the main room, where the stretcher locked into place. Dr. Ice Cream and Nurse Pound Cake leapt into action. "We need to stabilize her," the doctor shouted. "Put sugar on her 2 scopes, grab the store's bubblegum flavoring and feed it to her, again." Naruto stood back, watching the chaos with unease. Sugar, flavoring, none of this sounded like it would help, but he wasn't in a place to argue. These weren't his people, all he could do was hope. Then the monitor flatlined. "We're losing her," Dr. Ice Cream yelled. Naruto's heart lurched. But before he could process it, Ice King shoved forward, hands shaking. "No! Not my number one," he cried. "Princess, if you die on me, I'll never forgive you, I'll be lost in my own emotional." His rambling cut short when Finn leapt at him with a yell, socking him square in the face. Ice King hit the ground hard, groaning. Jake quickly grabbed Finn, pulling him back. But Naruto was right there with him, hand already charged with a spiraling Rasengan. His eyes burned crimson as he glared at Ice King's crumpled form. It was his fault, Bubblegum wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for him. Naruto tightened his grip, ready to strike. But before he could take a step, "Wait," Dr. Ice Cream called out. The beeping resumed, the flat line turned into steady chirps. Everyone froze, watching as Princess Bubblegum's melted gum began to clump and smooth, her form shifting back to normal. She was paler than usual, frail, but whole again. Cheers erupted, citizens wept. Princesses hugged each other. Relief rippled through the room like a wave. Naruto let the Rasengan fizzle out of his palm, shoulders loosening. He exhaled slow, the weight pressing off his chest. Then Bubblegum's voice came, dry, raspy. "I'm fine, I only need rest." Naruto frowned. She didn't sound fine. Not even close. "You sure about that?" he asked, trying to mask his concern with a half-tease. "You don't look so good, Bubble Butt." But she never got to answer. "Is she okay?" Ice King blurted out, staggering to his feet. "I can't see through these pain tears. She's not weird or anything, is she?" Dr. Ice Cream blinked. "She's fine, but why are you asking me that?" Ice King shook his head, "Because when we pulled her up, I saw something weird, something I still don't understand." Two sharp thuds cut him off. Finn's newly fixed rose sword embedded itself in the floor inches from Ice King's toes. Right beside it, one of Naruto's gray wooden tendrils slammed down, splintering the tile. "Wait, listen to me," Ice King yelped, "hands up." "No way," Finn snapped. "Shut it, old man," Naruto growled, eyes blazing red. He couldn't deny it, some of this fury wasn't just for Ice King. It was for himself too. "Old man," Ice King balked. "I'm not old." Jake sighed. "Yeah, dude. You are." The whole room murmured in agreement. Ice King looked around. Muttering, "Guess it makes sense now." He shuffled to the nearest window, blasting it open with ice. "I'll leave now. I'm sorry if my old skin weirds you out, princess. No one wants to see this old skin. No one in the world." His words hung heavy, tinged with a sadness Naruto hadn't expected. "Just get out of here," Finn shouted. And Ice King did, flying out the window and vanishing into the night. The room quieted, everyone turned back to Princess Bubblegum, relieved but still shaken. Naruto, though, he couldn't shake the way she looked, sickly, weak, fragile in a way she'd never seemed before. The guilt pressed heavier on his chest. He sighed, then turned to Finn and Jake. "I'm gonna head out." Finn blinked, "Now, but we'll need help watching her." "Yeah," Jake added, frowning. "You sure?" Naruto nodded. "Yeah, I'll be back in an hour, if not, check the main park." Finn studied him a moment longer, still uncertain, but finally nodded, "All right." Naruto didn't wait, he leapt toward another window, shattering it as he vaulted through. Glass rained down as he disappeared into the Candy Kingdom night, leaving the cheers, the relief, and the guilt behind. Jake watched Naruto disappear out the broken window, the night swallowing him whole. The slam of the frame still echoed in his ears. The guy hadn't even hesitated, just jumped. Jake frowned, stretching his neck a little to peer at the empty window. "Man," he muttered under his breath. "I guess even Mr. Grins has nights where he can't fake it." "Sorry about that, Peebles," Finn said, turning back toward the princess, his voice low but tense. Jake blinked at her, still unsure how to process everything. The energy in the room was heavy, worried, and a little chaotic, and Jake couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Man, this is all a mess," he thought, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him even as he tried to stay calm. Suddenly, a flurry of movement caught his attention. Finn, the other princesses and I made you a new backpack." Raggedy Princess to the blonde, Finn's backpack perched on her glass shard crown like some sort of crown jewel. Jake watched, half amused. "Whoa, Raggedy Princess, it's so awesome, thank you," Finn said. "You're welcome, Finn," Raggedy Princess giggled, then darted off to help with the princess. Jake's attention snapped back as he saw her eyes flicker beneath the eyelids of Princess Bubblegum. He shook his head slightly. "You look like sick, gray meat," he muttered, the words out before he could stop himself. "But we're gonna jack you up so awesome." Finn gave him a look that mixed horror and exasperation, but Jake leaned back against the stretcher, shrugging. Honestly, it's the truth. She's a mess right now. We should wheel her to her bedroom, right? Finn asked, looking at Jake. Yeah, man, Jake said, adjusting the straps of the stretcher. Then we'll do magic tricks. Finn grinned. Like fake magic? Jake waved a hand vaguely, his voice trailing off. Yeah, like, wow, it was under the hat the whole time. Finn just laughed. They moved carefully through the corridors of the hospital, wheels clicking softly against the polished floors. Jake's eyes darted around, taking in the clean, sterile lights above, the faint hum of the monitors, and the concerned expressions of the candy citizens trailing behind them. Breakfast Princess, Hot Dog Princess, and several others followed, whispering anxiously. When they arrived in Bubblegum's room, it was almost surreal. The space was quiet, the bed grand and ornate, and Jake could feel a strange weight lift off his shoulders as they laid her down. Then, Finn and Jake worked quickly, placing flowers from every corner of the Candy Kingdom across the room. Half the wall was lined with blossoms, petals brushing softly against the curtains, their colors bright and alive. Jake couldn't help but watch, a strange mix of relief and awe washing over him. He felt like they were holding onto a fragile hope, and even amidst the chaos, it felt peaceful. After a few minutes, a lot had settled down. Most of the princess left the kingdom entirely, leaving Finn and Jake to watch over the princess. Jake leaned against the edge of the bed, tail flicking, and Finn was close beside him, both ready to surprise PB when she woke up. Princess. Princess, they started, calling her awake together. Surprise, Finn and Jake called once her eyes had opened. Finn grinned, stepping up. Yeah. We picked every flower in the Candy Kingdom just for you. He glanced at the walls, noticing how petals stacked halfway up like a weird, colorful avalanche. Whoa. That's a lot of flowers. That's kind of awesome though, hoo-oh-oh, Jake cheered, bouncing slightly on his toes. PB didn't respond. Finn tilted his head. Princess Bubblegum? Then she made it, ugh, a guttural noise and her body bent in this really freaky way. Jake's ears twitched. And he instinctively ducked behind Finn. Oh geez, what's happening with her? Finn grabbed him and whispered, keeping his voice low. Quiet dude, we're supposed to take care of her, not make her feel bad. Jake blinked, trying to process it all. His brother was right, he should at least try, but still. Jake gave a slow nod to Finn. I dunno, man, she's just kind of weird right now. She's just messed up from the accident, man. We just have to take care of her, till she feels better, Finn said firmly. Okay dude, Jake muttered, tail twitching nervously. Then, snap, the bed was empty. Jake's eyes widened. Whoa, wait, where'd she go? Scraping noises came from the bathroom. Jake's stomach knotted. Oh man, don't tell me she's crawling around everywhere. He shuffled forward cautiously, eyes darting. When they stepped inside, there she was, dragging herself across the tiles, hands scraping, moving with this weird intensity. Jake swallowed hard. Princess, no, you shouldn't be out of bed, Finn shouted, swooping in and gently picking her up. She slumped into him, weak but twitching slightly. They walked back to the main bedroom, then set the princess back on the bed, Jake only following cautiously. There you go, Finn said, smiling just a bit, then it faded. Jake, you mind leaving me and the princess alone? I got to tell her something. Jake paused, tail curling nervously. On the first hand, Jake was still a bit nervous with how Bubblegum was winging out, and wanted to stay to protect his bro. On the other hand, he was starting to get scared, and needed a moment to breath. He made a quick decision. I gotcha, I'll go get some tea, he said, weaving through the piles of flowers without knocking any over. He headed to the side kitchen, the air smelling like sugar and petals and slightly weird hospital-wise stuff. He brewed the tea quickly, steam curling lazily, trying to calm his nerves. Then back to the room, carefully stepping over flowers. The soft clinking of the cup in his hand sounded way too loud. He reassured himself nothing weird was happening as he made his way back. Hopefully. When he returned, Jake exhaled, tail giving a small wag. Jake padded into the room behind Finn, trying to hold the tray with the tea steady. Peppermint Butler came in not long after, about to ask for something, but the second he saw PB talking to Finn, his jaw dropped, and he hissed like a cat, tail puffed up. The cup nearly slipped from his hands when the mint rushed past him. Whoa, ya something weird's going on. Jake froze for a second, eyes locked on where Pep but left, but then Jake dealt a tap on his shoulder. Jake, Finn called, snapping him back, only to get a response with a jump and scream. But once he landed, Jake turned to his brother. I'm gonna get some stuff for the princess. Be right back, Jake said, voice trying to sound casual but failing completely. His mind was racing. Stuff, right, stuff that hopefully doesn't make her explode or anything. Jake gave a small, unsure nod, then made a worried noise under his breath, tail twitching. Then Finn left, shutting the door. Jake glanced back at PB, noticing the way she was breathing, slow, deep, almost unnatural. Jake took a deep breath and tried to sound cheerful. Hey, princess, sorry you're not feeling good, oh, I'll sing you a song. Yeah, you love it when I sing songs. He grabbed a pink microphone and a small speaker, while his stomach expanded slightly into bongos. The first note hit, and PB's glare sliced through the room like ice. Jake froze mid-beat, but continued playing eyes wide. He just sort of hoped she would stop her glare if he finished the song. She loved his songs, right? Her voice suddenly dropped into a deep, guttural growl. Then she slammed her hand into one of the flower bushes and in an instant, every single flower wilted instantly. Jake's jaw dropped. Okay, maybe that wasn't the best choice. PB convulsed and yelped something incomprehensible. Jake's stomach did a flip. He tried to stop the song, fumbling with the bongos. This song's not that good. I'm stoppin'. But PB wasn't done. She yelped again, flailing. Jake cringed as she shrieked, the bed began bouncing wildly. And then, flames. Dark, demonic flames sprouted around the room. Jake, she screamed out, voice changed, deep and monster-like. Jake's eyes went as wide as saucers, he turned on his heels and bolted, tail flailing, heart pounding. Oh my glob, oh my glob, oh my glob, oh my glob, oh my glob. He skidded to a stop outside the door, panting, before slamming it shut behind him and sliding to the floor. Maybe, the toxic waste did something to her brain, made her, demon powers or something. He leaned against the wall, catching his breath, ears drooping. The park was silent, too silent, shadows stretched unnaturally across the blackened ground, remnants of his awakening rampage. The swings creaking faintly in the wind. Naruto sat alone on one of them, the chains cold and rough against his hands, his body hunched forward, elbows on his knees. The darkness around him wasn't just the night, it was the weight pressing into his chest, thick and suffocating. His thoughts churned like a storm. How could I let this happen? How could I let all of this happen? He had been tricked, again and again, drawn close to the edge, nearly destroyed. He had brought his friends into danger, let them teeter on the knife's edge. Shadow, he had lost Shadow. And PB, she had almost died, but grief didn't take hold, not really. What burned inside him was blame. Relentless, sharp. Corrosive blame aimed at himself. He should have stayed focused, he should have seen the Lich's energy inside him sooner. He should have broken free from its control. He should have caught PB. He should have realized sooner the danger of diving into that pool of malice. He should have protected his long-found partners, his friends, again and again. Each thought cut, each memory twisted, and it all reminded him of the past. It hurt. God, how it hurt. Naruto gripped the cold chains of the swing tighter, his knuckles pale. The night air around him grew heavier, pressing down like it wanted to bury him. He shut his eyes, and the park dissolved. In its place came the battlefield, dust. Blood, silence broken only by the groans of the dying wind. His body remembered the exhaustion, the sting of his torn skin, the hollow ache of where his arms should have been. He could almost smell the scorched ground, how his face was back then, less pronounced whiskers, and his blue eyes. He stood again before Hagoromo, who regarded him with the same patient, unreadable gaze. Behind him towered the tailed beasts, free at last, their chakra trembling through the air. To his left, Sakura's eyes brimmed with tears. Kakashi stood somberly, his expression masked but his concern plain. Sasuke lingered at the edge, sharp eyes watching, always watching. Hagoromo's voice echoed, calm but firm. Naruto, the war has ended, tell me, what will you do now, what path will you walk? Naruto remembered how heavy the words had felt, like they pressed on his chest. He had to pause, to gather the scraps of himself that weren't burned out in battle. Finally, he answered, his voice hoarse but steady. I'm gonna look after them, the tailed beasts. They've been used like tools for too long. Somebody's gotta make sure they're safe. Away from people. Away from the shinobi world. If no one else will do it. He gave a tired smile. Then I will. He remembered Sakura's sharp inhale, the way her hands clenched together. Naruto, are you serious, after everything you said about wanting to be Hokage? Kakashi's voice cut in, measured but carrying weight. It's not a small decision, you'd be leaving the village behind, Naruto, are you certain this is what you want? Naruto laughed faintly, the sound ragged. He scratched the back of his neck with his one hand, wincing at the stiffness in his shoulders. To be honest, all that Hokage talk was mostly me being loud. You know, proving myself, and seeing Granny Tsunade buried in paperwork, or the old man, I don't think that's my kind of thing. His grin softened, more wistful than proud. Then his eyes drifted toward Sasuke. His voice dropped, more serious than before. But I still want someone to do it, to protect the village, that's why. I want you to take it, Sasuke. Be Hokage in my place, you'd be good at it. He remembered Sasuke's stare, sharp, calculating, unreadable. No words came from him then, only silence that felt heavier than the battlefield itself. The voices of the past blurred, fading back into the dark park. Naruto opened his eyes, staring at the ground beneath the swings. His fists ached from how tightly he was gripping the chains. The guilt hadn't changed, not then, not now. The swing creaked as Naruto rocked slightly, his body hunched forward, head bowed low. The memory of Sasuke's silence gnawed at him. Back then, it had been just another unanswered question between them, but now it echoed like judgment. If he'd been sharper, more aware, the war might have ended differently. If he'd been stronger, maybe no one would have had to suffer. And here, in this strange new time, it was happening all over again. He'd been tricked. Manipulated. Shadow was gone. Finn and Jake had nearly been crushed. Bubblegum had almost died. His stomach twisted as he pressed his hand against the swing's chain. Every failure stacked higher until it pressed against his ribs, suffocating. He thought of the Lich's control, of the malice that had clawed its way into his heart, and of the moment he let it drag him under. If he'd been faster, if he'd been smarter, if he'd been more focused. Naruto gritted his teeth. The thoughts burned, but beneath the pain, something harder began to form. He couldn't let it keep happening, he wouldn't. If this time wanted to throw monsters like the Lich at him, then fine, he'd meet them head-on. But he wouldn't just stumble into it unprepared again. He'd train, he'd master the abilities he had somewhat neglected. Understand them, bend them to his will before it could be turned against him. And next time, when danger came, because it always did, he wouldn't let anyone fall. Not Shadow, not Finn, not Jake, not Bubblegum. The swing's chains rattled as he let go, sitting straighter, a faint fire returning to his eyes. He wasn't just a wanderer dropped into another mess of anew. He was Naruto Uzumaki, and if he couldn't forgive himself for the past, then he'd at least make sure no one else paid for it. The night air stirred faintly, carrying the sound of approaching footsteps. The swing groaned beneath Naruto as he doubled over laughing, wild and sharp. It wasn't the carefree kind of laugh people knew him for, it was harsher, almost daring the world to try him again. Shadow was right, he snorted, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. I should have trained, I tempted fate and, look where it got me. His grin stretched wider, edges too sharp, next time I tempt it, I'll be ahead of it. Next time, I'll keep my fun and no one's gonna get messed up. The guilt didn't leave, but it sank down, buried beneath the heat of his resolve. His laughter quieted just as footsteps crunched across the grass. Naruto turned, smirk already forming. Finn stood there, juggling a lopsided pile of supplies. It's been exactly an hour, Finn said flatly. You okay? Naruto tilted his head sly. What you timing me now, you worried, or just miss me already? Finn shrugged it off, adjusting the bundle in his arms. Man, I'm used to you messing with me by now, so your teasing ain't gonna make me react. Naruto leaned back in the swing, grinning. Okay, good for you. I'm good, he answered right after, just figured it's time I started training again. That made Finn raise a brow. Training, that doesn't sound like you. You're usually the one yelling at me and Jake to do push-ups till we drop. Naruto's grin turned darker, maybe I should up your training, then. Sorry sir, won't happen again, sir. Finn blurted automatically, then groaned, realizing what he'd just said. Naruto chuckled, eyes narrowing with amusement. Look at you, already traumatized. His gaze flicked to the supplies in Finn's arms, so what's with all that junk? Finn looked down, then back up, Princess Bubblegum sent me to get it, girl stuff. Naruto squinted at the bundle, gasoline, lighter fluid, random sharp things. For a second he looked skeptical, then he shrugged. Sounds like her. Still, the smirk came back, maybe it'll get you a date. Finn blinked, then frowned, what, dude, no, it's not like that. Naruto waved him off, laughing under his breath, sure it's not. Seriously, Finn stomped a foot, cheeks hot. She's the ruler of a whole kingdom, I'm just helping out. Naruto only leaned back in the swing, grin wide, clearly entertained. The two made their way back to the castle, slipping in through the main doors, climbing stairs, and weaving down the endless pink halls. Finn jogged ahead with a bounce in his step, clutching the bundle like a puppy desperate to please. Naruto, trailing behind, couldn't help but laugh under his breath. Kid's hopeless, he thought. It wasn't even about the age gap, 13 versus, 18? However old you had to be to run a kingdom. Even if PB was 13, she'd still be nose-deep in science stuff, too busy ruling to kick back and play. But that wasn't Naruto's truth to drop, that was Bubblegum's. His job was just to be there for Finn, same as Jake, still funny, though. Finn barreled down the last stretch, yellow walls blurring past him. He skidded to a stop in front of Bubblegum's door, hand ready to knock, and was yanked back by a pair of stretchy arms. Whoa dude, wait, Jake said, reeling him in. His eyes darted over the pile in Finn's arms like it was a ticking bomb. What's with all this? Finn glanced down, then back up, casual as ever. I dunno, bleach, ammonia, gasoline, lighter fluid, plutonium. You know, lady stuff. Jake's eyes went wide. No man, no, the door swung open. Bubblegum peeked out, scooped the pile neatly from Finn's arms, gave a quick thanks, and shut the door again. Finn blinked, then grinned. No problem. Naruto cocked a brow. That was weird, he thought, but turned to Jake instead. Okay, what's wrong? Jake whipped toward him, skipping any kind of greeting. His voice was low, urgent. You guys don't get it, her bed was on fire. What? Finn yelped, eyes wide. Naruto folded his arms, steady but sharp, is she okay? No dude, she made it on fire. With a match, Finn asked. With science, Naruto added. Jake shook his head slowly, swallowing, with her mind. Silence dropped over them, thick and heavy. Naruto leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching Jake spiral. The way the dog's eyes darted, the way his voice wavered, it was like he was too sure of himself. Her bed was on fire, with her mind? Naruto smirked faintly to himself, sounded crazy, sounded impossible. Then again, so did half the stuff he'd seen since waking up in this candy-coated nightmare. "All right," Jake muttered, puffing out his chest. "I'll prove it." They crept back toward Bubblegum's door. Jake's hand stretched, trembling as he reached for the knob. He hesitated, swallowing hard, then finally pushed it open. The smell hit Naruto first, smoke and chemicals, thick in the air. Inside, the room looked scorched, flowers wilted and blackened, pink walls charred as if a fire had torn through. But Bubblegum, she was gone. Finn's face twisted with worry. "Where's the princess?" Naruto frowned, unease gnawing in his gut. So Jake wasn't imagining it. He glanced around, every instinct telling him something was wrong, very wrong. That's when he heard it, wet sounds, gurgling, from behind the bathroom door. Finn ran up, knocking fast. "Princess, are you in there?" A voice answered, not Bubblegum's soft, careful voice, but something deeper, heavier, like it was dragged up from a pit. "I'm busy." Naruto's smirk dropped, his stomach turned cold. That was all the confirmation he needed. "Yeah," he muttered, "Jake's not overreacting." Without another thought, he drove his foot into the door. Wood splintered, the frame cracked, and the whole thing blasted inward. "Dude," Finn yelped, his voice cracking. "What are you doing?" But the words died in his throat. Naruto froze, even he didn't expect this. The princess loomed in the bathroom, twisted and stretched, taller than she'd ever been, taller than the Lich himself. Her form bubbled and warped, skin the color of rot, her limbs twitching like they weren't hers anymore. She hunched over the tub, hands sunk deep into green liquid that sloshed and frothed like ooze. The same cursed stuff Naruto had felt back in the well. She lifted it to her mouth, guzzling it down, the sound sickening. Naruto's jaw clenched, every instinct screamed enemy. That energy, it's the same power that tried to tear me apart. And she's drinking it like it's water. Finn took a step forward, his voice breaking, "Princess?" But Naruto didn't move, his eyes narrowed, and for the first time, he wasn't doubting Jake's story, not one bit. "Put it down, Biggie," Naruto barked, pointing straight at the tub. His voice cut sharper than he meant it to, more command than plea. For a second, he thought maybe she'd listen. Maybe somewhere under all that twisted goo and snarling mass, Bubblegum would stop. Instead, she whirled on them. Her arm, stretched and warped, swung with bone-cracking speed. Naruto barely had time to brace before, they were swatted clean across the hall, smashing into the opposite wall like flies under a swatter. Plaster cracked, dust rained down, and they slid down in a heap. Finn's fixed backpack, shredded. Naruto groaned, pushing himself up with one hand pressed to his ribs. Figures. After everything today, I should have known I wouldn't dodge that. His body still ached from earlier battles, he'd just been too stubborn to show it. But man, she hit like a freight cart at full speed. A low rumble pulled his attention back. The mutated Bubblegum swelled grotesquely, growing taller and taller until she burst out of the room entirely. Walls cracked as her massive form ripped through, rising up until she towered over the castle itself. With a guttural roar, she rushed headlong toward one of the gumball guardians. Swinging fists bigger than houses. Naruto lurched to his feet, spitting dust, then turned his head to the right. Of course Finn and Jake were sprawled beside him, coughing, but, what the? Ice King, standing there like he'd just strolled in. Naruto squinted, more annoyed than angry. His tone was casual, almost flat. "Why are you here?" The wizard fidgeted, scratching his beard, eyes shifting. Look, man, don't get mad, but I had to, someone had to keep an eye on the princess after the Lich thing." That made Naruto pause, that explains it. Finn, though, wasn't having it. He staggered up, fists clenched, pain flashing in his eyes. You don't know that. I do. Ice King shot back, his voice higher, sharper. Thanks to my wizard eyes. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Wizard eyes? Ice King's voice dropped, turning weirdly serious. Back at the well, I saw something. The Lich. Something left him. And it went straight into Bubblegum. Finn's jaw tightened, shaking his head. That's crazy. It's not crazy, Ice King snapped. Okay, maybe half the time it is. 'Cause with wizard eyes, what you see is, like, real half the time. The other half? It's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All the time. He sighed, shoulders slumping under the weight of his own words. All the time. Naruto looked at him for a moment, and for the first time, felt a pang of sympathy for the old wizard. But there wasn't time for sympathy. Not now. His eyes hardened, resolve setting in like stone. Well then, he said, voice low but firm, I'm gonna handle it. You all stay here. Finn's head whipped toward him. Wait, don't you need our... But before he could finish, Naruto was gone. Vanished. Naruto reappeared in a blur of motion, high atop one of the castle's taller spires. From there, he could see it all, the mutated Bubblegum, towering like a nightmare, trading blows with the Gumball Guardian. Each strike rattled the ground like thunder, candy citizens screaming and scattering below. His fists clenched at his sides. So not only did the Lich almost wipe us out, now he's using her like a puppet. The thought left a sour taste in his mouth. The guilt tried to creep back in, but it only stoked something sharper inside him. All the more reason I've gotta train. I can't keep lagging behind. Not if this world's gonna keep throwing monsters in my face. Still, his smirk tugged back into place. That last hit from her hurt like crazy, ribs were screaming at him, but compared to taking the Lich head on? This was nothing. He remembered how alive he'd felt back at the well, even when the fight could have killed him. He wasn't about to forget that rush. So why the hell not? A fight like this was perfect. A fight to shake off the sting, to get his groove back. To remind himself who he was. His grin stretched wide, animalistic, his eyes sharp and hungry. Yeah, he muttered, coiling like a spring, let's dance, Biggie. And then he launched. Air cracked around him as he shot forward, leg extended in a clean arc. His heel smashed against Bubblegum's grotesque jaw, snapping her head sideways with a sickening crack. The sheer force sent her flying back, crashing into the Candy Kingdom's outer wall like a cannonball. Dust plumed, debris rained down. Naruto landed hard, skidding, the ground splitting beneath his sandals. He rolled his shoulders, ignoring the ache, that grin still burning bright. Even weak, even small compared to her hulking mass, he was still gonna put in the work. Naruto's grin split his face as Monster PB spotted him. He didn't waste a second. 3 precise hand signs, a blur of motion, and he vanished just before a gargantuan fist smashed into the ground where he had been standing. The shockwave rattled the surrounding buildings, sending candy bricks skittering like marbles. He launched himself at her arm, black flames licking along his fist and forearm, crackling in the air. She swung to squash him, massive fingers snapping like steel gates, but he was gone, already leaping toward her other arm. She swung again, trying to hurl him into the void, and, yes, she managed to toss him. But Naruto twisted midair, letting his momentum carry him back onto her forearm. He crouched low, coiled like a spring, and launched toward her face. She reacted with another punch, and this time he didn't dodge, he met her blow head-on, his flaming fist colliding with her own, sparks and black embers raining in all directions. The impact shook him back slightly, but it only stoked the fire in his veins. Naruto twisted, dodging the next massive strike, and delivered a savage uppercut to her jaw, sending her staggering backward. He landed nimbly on the ground, barely giving himself a second to breathe. In a heartbeat, he was gone again, moving at impossible speed. He ran up her leg like it was a staircase, black flames climbing with him, every movement precise yet wild. By the time he reached her shoulders, he was inches from her distorted, towering face. He mocked her with a grin, and she swung at him. He grabbed her massive hand, kicked off it, and let her fist smack into her own jaw. Sloppy, he muttered under his breath, but there was no time for rest. Monster PB wasn't done. With a mighty heave, she ripped an empty watchtower from the ground and hurled it at him. Naruto's grin widened even further. With a slash of chakra, he cleaved the tower into pieces and kicked each segment back at her like guided missiles. He leapt after the fragments, striking with precise blows. Jaw, arm, side, he was everywhere at once, faster than she could follow. She swung at him again. He dodged. Hit her twice in the jaw. Another swing, another miss. Landing on her hand, he braced himself as she attempted a crushing slap. His flames extinguished for a moment, but he caught her massive hand mid-strike, the raw force vibrating up his arm. "You're honestly making this too easy," he muttered, voice low, eyes gleaming. She didn't relent. Her next slap came from the side, hurling him through the air. He crashed into another tower, bricks exploding around him. Winded but grinning ear to ear, he wiped the dust from his face. "This is exactly the kind of fight I live for," he thought. Yet, boredom started to creep in. She wasn't adapting fast enough. Naruto clenched his fists. "Art is an explosion," he shouted, and the world seemed to answer. Black flame shockwaves rippled out from every point he had touched, hitting PB in her hands, her jaw, the edges of her massive form. The jutsu he had spent months perfecting wasn't just a punch, it left invisible markers that detonated on his command. He watched the flames dance over her, feeling that familiar surge of control. Now that she was preoccupied, he could plan his next move. As if the world itself had heard him, ice began creeping along her body. Naruto looked down. Finn and Ice King rode on Jake's stretched, massive back, freezing monster PB from the ground up. Ice crystals snaked over her form, encasing her limbs in thick, glittering frost. Within moments, the gargantuan, Lich-controlled princess was completely immobilized. Naruto landed beside them, black flames fading, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Jake shrank back to his normal size, panting slightly, while Finn hovered close, still wide-eyed at the scale of the chaos. For a brief moment, the park was silent except for the crackle of residual flames and the soft hiss of frost. Naruto exhaled, his grin softening into a smirk that held equal parts relief and excitement. Naruto's eyes scanned the frozen tower of Monster PB, his arms crossed. "So, whose idea was it to freeze Biggie?" His tone carried that mix of curiosity and teasing he always had. The one that could cut through tension but also draw it out. Jake immediately puffed up, practically bouncing in place. "That was my idea," he exclaimed, eyes wide. "But, it took a ton of convincing, me and Ice King, like, convincing Finn to actually let him help this time." Finn gave a sheepish shrug, cheeks pink beneath the weight of both pride and guilt. Naruto let out a short, knowing laugh. Of course, he thought. But he understood. He leaned forward slightly, giving the wizard and the boy a small nod. "Well? You did a good job." His gaze lingered on Ice King just a moment longer, the tease dancing at the edges of his words. Before he could add anything else, the massive ice statue began to tilt. He instinctively stretched out, shaping gray wood hands beneath it. With a few quick, careful motions, he caught the top-heavy form, lowering it gently to the ground. He exhaled, a mix of relief and fatigue washing over him. That was a close one. No sooner had the words left his mouth than the surface of PB's frozen form began to crack. Spiderweb lines of ice snaked across her face and limbs. Naruto's stomach dropped slightly. Shards began to splinter away, cascading to the ground in clinking, dangerous patterns. His hands rose automatically, gray wood fingers catching pieces where he could, holding them in place. He looked down at the shattered fragments of ice, jaw tightening. "I can't win." Despite the frustration and creeping dread, he wasn't panicking. She'd been through worse, the well of power had practically liquefied her, and her doctors managed to rebuild her then. This was less complicated, though he only really told himself that. Still, he just wanted her to stop dying. The hallway outside the emergency room buzzed with nervous energy. Candy Kingdom citizens huddled together, whispering, shifting from foot to foot. The princesses leaned against the walls, some fidgeting, others silent, eyes glued to the door. Naruto stood apart, arms crossed, his face neutral but his mind working overtime. Part of him feared the worst, part of him silently hoped, just like last time, that she'd be okay. Finally, the doors creaked open. Dr. Ice Cream stepped out first, a tired but resolute look on his face. Finn's eyes went wide, and before anyone could stop him, he shouted, "PB. Is she okay?" Dr. Ice Cream's lips pressed into a thin line. "She's fine, mostly, there were some complications." Jake's ears perked, and he leaned closer to Finn, trying to catch every word. Finn's hands clenched. "Complications," he repeated, voice tight. "Let's just say," the doctor began, "there wasn't enough of her to restore her fully. We did our best." His voice trailed off as the door behind him opened wider. A figure stepped through, younger, smaller, but alive, PB. Her pink hair framed her face perfectly, though her stature and mannerisms clearly marked her as 13. She looked around cautiously, blinking at the crowd. "She's 13 now," Dr. Ice Cream explained gently. "Not what we intended, but she's stable." Finn's jaw dropped. Jake blinked. Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly, scanning her carefully, not showing much, but inside, his chest tightened. "So she's really okay." Again. Ice King muttered something under his breath, then straightened. "Dang it. All right, everyone, I'm out. Don't get into trouble." With a flurry of icy wings, he shot through the nearest window and vanished into the morning sky. The hallway erupted in murmurs and soft cheers. Finn and Jake exchanged glances. Relieved, while Naruto stayed still, silent. A faint line of worry tugged at his mind, but beneath it was a flicker of hope, the same hope that had kept him calm the first time PB had been brought back. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Seeing her there, breathing, moving. It was enough for now. That's it for today. I hoped you liked the video. Please like and subscribe, and comment ideas if you can, and maybe you could share this with your friends, because you never know, they might like what ifs too. So without further ado, All Kage, out.